Today is our third and final week of our series, Built to Last, a study through James. And James is one of my favorite books because it's so practical. And it allows us to really dive into what we need to be doing as followers of Jesus. And so I'm ready to get into it, and I hope that you are. So if you have your Bibles, we're going to be in James chapter 4. We're going to get to it in a little bit, but I just want to go ahead and get you, ready to go for that. But here's the thing. I bet as you walked in here today, there are a few things on your mind that you want, right? We're all wanters. I mean, I want things, you want things. It's pretty normal, right? You know, there are things that you don't even know that you want. You may walk into the store and then you realize, oh man, I really need that, right? The worst is whenever I go to the grocery store and I have a list of like 7 things, and as I'm walking through the aisle, I just found out that I need 7 more things because there's just things that I see in the aisle where it's like, I need those, right? You know, and I don't even know that I want them. You know, I mean, I have an Amazon cart that's like got full of things. It's like 27 items in it. It's like $1.3 million in next day deliverables. I mean, it's just all this good stuff. I'm exaggerating about the cost, but I'm not exaggerating about the cart. Because if you go to that Save for Later tab, we have all of Amazon in our family cart, right, ready to go. And because we want things, we as humans, we desire things, and it's really important. And I'm always amazed at how my favorite companies or my favorite products, they always know exactly when I'm ready to maybe make the purchase or when I'm wanting to make the purchase, and they're just so good at that, and it's truly amazing. They know exactly what I want. But here's the thing. On a more serious note, there are some really important things that we want. Maybe we want our marriage to feel like it did before things got complicated. Maybe we want our kids to turn out okay or better than okay. They want to turn out better than how we turned out. We want our careers to truly matter, or you want your finances to stabilize, or your health to hold. We want to be known and appreciated. These are real things that you and I want in our lives. We want people to care about us. And more importantly, we want people who we really appreciate their opinion to care about us. We want things to go the way that they were planned to go. And none of that is wrong. None of those things are wrong. The desire is not the enemy here. God wired you to want things. That just is what it is. He wants you to want connection. He wants you to have all of those things. See, the desires are not the problem. These things are human. These things are what you and I experience all the time. It's okay to want things. But here's the question that James is going to ask us today, and it's this. What do we do when we don't get what we want? This is a challenging question because there's a lot of different ways that we could respond to this. Do you fight for it? Do you quietly resent maybe the person standing between you and it? Do you just plan life a little bit harder? Do you grip things a little bit tighter? Or do you pull back entirely and say, well, I'm not getting it, so I'm not sure if it's right for me? Do you find yourself saying, the thing out loud while your internal world is running in a completely different direction? See, most of us never stop to ask what our desires are actually doing to us. Because the desires themselves don't feel dangerous. We're wired to feel those. They feel responsible, right? You just want your kids to be better than how you were. You want them to have a better life. That feels normal. That feels responsible. You feel justified. They feel like needs. Feel like rights. And that's what makes it exactly so hard for us to see. And we've been examining the book of James over the past couple of weeks, and James has been building toward this exact conversation all along, and we've been going through it, and this is the 3rd week. And last week we confronted the gap between what we claim to believe and how we truly act and how we live. And this week, he's going to go a little bit deeper. He doesn't just describe the gap, he identifies what's underneath it. And what sits underneath so much is the frustration that you and I experience. And that one thing that we experience is pride. Pride doesn't sound like the problem here, right? But James is about to show us how and why. You may be thinking, okay, when most of us hear the word pride, we typically have a couple different realizations of what that could be, right? We kind of picture the same thing. We picture the person who thinks that they're better than everyone. Right? I'm sure a lot of us, as I'm saying this, are picturing somebody in their brain going, yep, that person definitely struggles with pride, right? They're the ones that can't admit that they're wrong. The loudest voice in the room who needs to win every argument. or the executive who steps on everybody on his way to the top. And you're thinking, well, that's not me. I don't do those things. I go to church, I'm committed to my community, and I'm doing all the good things. And that's probably not anyone in this room. It probably isn't. So when James writes the most confrontational chapters, one of the most confrontational chapters in the New Testament, aimed squarely at pride, you're thinking, okay, it's easy to read and think, he's talking about blank. He's talking about someone else. He's not talking about me. He's talking about so-and-so. He's talking about that person. He's talking about who that person I just met in the grocery store last week. That's who he's talking about. But here's the thing. He's not. He's not talking about fill in the blank, right? He has you and he has me in his bullseye in this. He's talking to us because pride is not just thinking too highly of yourself. It is living as if your desires, judgments, and plans should rule. Pride at its very core puts us at the center of our lives. Nobody else. Puts us. And most of James chapter 4 we'll be in today exposes how subtle and powerful pride really can be in our lives. And he's telling these scattered Christians, as we've talked about, he's writing these to the scattered, persecuted Christians all over the Roman Empire. Christians that they're called to be a part of the greater good. Like they all want to be a part of something. They have a higher calling and a better way of living. And so James is saying, look, there's pride in your lives that you may not know is there. So James opens chapter 4 with one question. So James chapter 4, verse 1, I'll have it right here on the screen. It says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? So he's writing to believers who are struggling to get along and struggling to work together. Man, feels almost like modern day, right? Again, they have the desire for doing the good is not the issue. It's how they react. It's how you and I react every step of the way. Pride causes us to react in ways that are extremely problematic. And James is going to talk about 4 different traps that you and I can fall into. And we're going to go through all 4 of them. But the first one is this. The first trap that he's about to walk through is pride that takes. Pride that takes. And he talks about here in verse 2. You desire, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. This is the first trap that James is walking us through, and it's pride that takes. You want something, you don't have it, you go get it, right? Whether it's a full-blown argument or a fight or a slow burn of resentment that you have towards someone, you find a way to move toward getting what you truly want. In pride, you put yourself at the center of everything. You kill or covet to make sure that you get what you want. And you do whatever it takes. You know, you can see this in a toddler, right? Toddler sees another toddler that has a toy that he wants. What does the toddler do? He goes and takes it, right? He says, this is my toy. And next thing you know, you have 2 crying toddlers, but you have every bit of the pride right in the middle. This trap causes harm to so many people. It also causes harm to yourself. And pride that takes is sinful. And it's incredibly damaging. And that's the first trap that he walks us through. And the second one is pride that strays. Pride that has a hard time staying on task. And James holds nothing back next in verse 4. And it says, you adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world means enmity against God? Therefore, anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. While you say that you want to follow Jesus, but then you live in a world and you're focused on all of that and its trappings, so what do? We say we want to follow God, but yet we still want to follow the world. We're dividing our attention. We divide our loyalties between God and ourselves, between heaven and earth. And guess what? It doesn't work. In James's language, he's calling this spiritual adultery, cheating on God with the world. That's a very serious allegation. That's something that I don't want to do. I don't want to be focused too much on the world that I miss the whole point with God. When you try to live like the world and follow Jesus, you fail at both. You don't achieve either of them. And life tends to feel beyond reach at that point. Life feels empty. It's because your loyalty is truly divided. That's trap number 2. Trap number 3 that we're about to walk through is pride that judges. And some of you are thinking, man, this one might be directed at me. The next trap that James connects is directly to speech and what you say. And when we don't get what we want, we begin to judge others, especially if they have what we want or are keeping us from getting what we want. Maybe it's the running commentary that you have going on in your head as you're walking through the day and going, man, I can't believe that they're doing this over here, or man, I really can't believe that they treated me that way. Did you see the way they responded to that? And you're thinking, this is okay. Well, maybe now it's not just the commentary in your brain, and now you're sharing it with a few trusted people, and next thing you know, you're at a Bible study, and you're going, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? Did you hear about what's going on in their life? Next thing you know, this little thought that was just running through your head is no longer a thought. It's a conversation. And you're talking about people's failures, their decisions, and their motives. In James 4:11, he says this, brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. Look, it's really easy for us to say, oh, I'm not gossiping. I just want to pray for them. I'm just processing what I went through. It's really traumatic. I just need to process and share with you everything that I experienced. You're not judging. You're just being honest. So you think. James says that when you position yourself as the evaluator of another person's life, you've placed yourself in a seat that belongs to God alone. That's not processing. That's pride. That's pride wearing the clothes of discernment. That's dangerous. So James is giving us a lot of great things here. He's walking us through things that you may not know that you're going through, or you may know that you're going through. And the 4th trap is actually incredibly subtle. It's pride that presumes. This is the one that's the hardest to understand and the hardest to see in someone's life, or maybe even hardest to see in your life. And sometimes it doesn't look like pride at all. It looks like responsibility. When we don't get what we want, we begin to presume upon the future, right? Our future and our plans and how we're going to get to do what we want to do, and how we're going to get what's coming to us. And it says this in verse 13. It says, now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money, why you do not even know what will happen tomorrow? What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. The pride that he's talking about in this verse is the planner, the strategist, the person who has the next 5 years planned out in detail. There's nothing wrong with planning. The problem that James is identifying is the posture underneath. The assumption that the future is yours to manage. That your timeline and your agenda is best. And that your path is the only one that matters. He says, today or tomorrow we'll go to this city to do this deal or to make that money. No acknowledgement of God's will. No open hands, just a plan. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to achieve. Executed with complete confidence that this is what's going to happen. This will be my future. This is the future that belongs to me. And you see all these trappings that I've just talked about that James is walking through creates a lot of tension in our lives. And each of these pride trappings, they harm us in so many different ways. And they harm others. And they're all used by the enemy to hamper what we really need, and that's a deeper relationship with Jesus. And here's what makes this more than just a diagnosis. James doesn't leave us here. He doesn't leave us knowing that we have all these problems in our lives. Because right in the middle of the most confrontational passage that he's written so far, he gives us a solution. You would expect James to follow with a list of things And correction, stop talking, stop taking, stop straying, stop judging others, stop presuming, maybe just try harder, do better, get it together. That's not what he says. That's what a moralist would do. That's what the Pharisees would have done. That's not what James does. Right in the middle of this conversation, he pivots to the solution that begins with something Jesus has already done on our behalf. And it's this, verse 6. But he gives us more grace. I think this is incredibly beautiful because we've been talking about all the things that we may fall into and it may trap us, but yet he gives us more grace. Not less, but more. Before James tells us what to do, he tells us what God gives, and that's grace. That means your real pride, it's not unforgivable. It's not unchangeable. This is the heartbeat of the entire chapter. Everything James calls you to do next flows from grace. The path back is not paved with effort. It is paved with what God has already done on the cross. And now remember, we've talked about this for the past couple of weeks. James knows this, right? He's heard this most of his life. Remember, James didn't believe his own brother was the Son of God until after the resurrection. He watched Jesus die and then risen from the dead and appeared to him specifically. And that's what it took for him to understand who Jesus was, for him to believe. James probably felt that he didn't deserve anything. He didn't recognize God's one and only Son. The only thing that could bring James back was grace. And grace is what he got. Knowing that he received all this grace, he has no trouble giving us the receipt for combating our pride. In verse 7, he says this, submit yourselves, then to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Verse 8, come near to God, and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. This is some serious instruction he's given us, but it's James's resolution for pride. Don't take this as just a few spiritual tips. He's calling for a full surrender. Submit to God. Turn from your ways. Turn from what has owned you and draw near to him with your whole heart. Take your sin seriously. But then he gives us a promise that he's experienced in his own life through his own shortcomings. If you'll do this one thing that he says, if you'll humble yourself, submit to God, stop resisting, and this is what will happen. Verse 10, humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. This is the reversal of everything that pride produces. God cannot lift you if you refuse to stop trying to lift yourself. The person who stops clawing for what they want and brings their desires openly before God, that person will be lifted up. Not because they earned it. We didn't earn it, but because what God has already done with open hands. And this is what James begs you and me to do in this exact moment, is to humble ourselves before God. So what does this actually look like? How do we actually put this into practice on a Monday or a Tuesday morning? Like we can talk about this all day long in church on a Sunday, but how do we put this in our life? Because James never wrote this so that it would become some sort of step-by-step process. He wants us to do something about it. James is not subtle about what he wants you to do. He doesn't say, hey, I want you to think about it for a week or so, sit with it, mull it over, process it, and then when you have a quiet moment, maybe consider it. He says, submit. He says, draw near to God. These are all postures of humility. This is incredibly important for us to understand. For example, I wrote these down so I don't want to mess them up, but maybe you need to stop defending yourself and start agreeing with God. Instead of explaining your attitude and maybe your posture or your words or your pride, you just call it what it is. Maybe you stop gripping what you want so tightly. You bring your desires honestly to God and say, this is what I want, but I want you more than I want this. Maybe you stop blaming others for what happened inside of you. James says the conflict out there starts with the desires in here. Humility owns its part. It takes ownership of its problems. Maybe you stop blaming others for what's happened to you and managing the appearances that are going on in your own life. Quit trying to look so spiritual all the time. Maybe you just walk up to him and say, God, if this is your will, and I want to just let you be real in my life, Lord. Maybe you need to stop presuming your own plans. Try not to rush past what he may have for you. Maybe you need to let conviction actually land. Instead of going, hey, I heard what the Bible said this morning, I heard what the verses were saying, and you walk out feeling that tug on your heart going, I probably should do something. And yet you move on with life and you forget. Maybe you should actually let that conviction land. Maybe you need to move toward God instead of away from him. Humility does not hide. It comes near. It prays honestly. It confesses specifically. It asks for help. You see, to humble yourself before God is to stop resisting his rule, stop defending your sin, and bring your whole life to him with open hands. This is what James means by humbling yourself before the Lord. It is not a feeling. It is not a mood. It is not a specific act. But it's really just what you've been holding on the hardest, opening your hands and saying, I'm giving it to you. I can't do this anymore, but I know that you can. And when you open your hands, you're finally in a position, in a posture to receive something. When your hands are wide open and you've put everything down, you can finally say, God, what do you have for me in this moment? And this is what's so important. Can you go to the next slide for me, Courtney? 3 weeks ago, we started a series asking the simple question. That simple question is this. What does a faith that actually lasts look like? What does a faith that's true and real, what does it look like in your life? And week 1 told us it looks like a faith that when it gets squeezed, it stands firm. And when life gets hard and pressure comes, and it will, your faith is tested, but it doesn't collapse. It endures. And enduring produces something that comfort never could. And week 2 told us that faith looks like when you actually follow what you believe, what you say you do. You have that integrity in your life. That you live not only what you claim on Sunday, it's what you do on Monday. Real faith doesn't hide. It leaves crumbs, it leaves fingerprints, it leaves a paper trail. It's visible. And this week, James tells us the hardest thing of all. Lasting faith is humble faith. Faith that has reordered its desires around what God wants rather than what you want. Faith has stopped fighting for position, stopped managing reputation, and stopped gripping for the future, and brought all of it open-handed in front of Jesus and said, whatever you want from me, Lord. That's the decision. That's the decision that's available for you today. That's the decision that's available for us every day to come to his feet and say, I want you to be in control. My faith is in you. And here's what I want to leave you with as the band comes back out. We're going to sing a song. You came in here today wanting something, right? There's something in your heart that you wanted. Me too. That hasn't changed. My Amazon cart is still full, and it will continue to be full. And you're going to leave here today still wanting things. But that's not the problem. And James never said it was. The question is whether your desires are directing you or whether your faith is directing them. Humble faith doesn't eliminate desire. It reorders it. It takes everything you want, the relationship, the reputation, the plan, the outcome, and holds it out before God, who is not indifferent to any of it, who sees it. He cares about it. And he's the one who promises that the person that would humble themselves before him will be lifted up. That's it. That's James chapter 4. That's what matters. When we position ourselves with a posture of humility, Jesus promises that he will lift us up in his way, in his will. We all have the opportunity today, as the band is going to be leading us here in a moment. We have an opportunity to know him in a deeper way. We have an opportunity to believe him and to take the next best step. A few weeks ago, we had a baptism, and that's a perfect, illustration of following Jesus, letting everyone know here in this building that they want to know Jesus deeper. And I hope that maybe there's someone here today that wants to take the next step to find and follow Jesus. So in this moment, we're going to pray. We're going to sing. Lord, be with us this morning as we continue to sing and how we're so grateful for you, no matter what you do. Lord, allow us to walk through everything we need to walk through. Allow us to let go of the things that we're gripping so tightly and allow our hands to be open, handing everything to you. Lord, I pray if there's someone in here today that is struggling with what's next, that they would say, Lord, I admit that I'm a sinner, but I believe that you sent your son down the cross to die for me. And I confess, and I want to change my ways to follow you, Lord, that they would pray that prayer just like that. So they can make the decision to follow you. Because that's what it's all about. Lord, be with us today as we celebrate our graduates, but most importantly, as someone has an opportunity to see you. In your name we pray. Amen. Let's stand and let's sing one more time.